You ever just play a game and by the end of it you feel like you're just a husk of a person? That was how I felt after playing Silent Hill Homecoming. This game took a mental toll on me, and for all of the wrong reasons a Silent Hill game should. Between the consistent crashes, the linear levels, and the all over the place storyline, I think it's super safe to say, but I really didn't like this game. But it's not enough to give you guys my ideas on why I don't like this game. I urge you, if you've never played this game, go play it. Go on right now. Click off this video. Go play it. Come back in 8 or 10 hours, depending on how many times your game crashes, and tell me what you think about it.
Silent Hill has always been a series about the personal trauma of a character's past and the physical manifestations of their inner psyche within Silent Hill. Homecoming shares these qualities, but delivers it in such a tone-deaf way that it insults the lore and the world of the previous installments. I thought playing this wouldn't be that bad, but I was wrong. It is bad, and for multiple different reasons too. Between a subpar story, consistent crashes, and just overall unfun game mechanics, what I sat down to play was not a Silent Hill game, but a sore attempt at adapting the franchise to appeal to modern players for a more action-oriented, exciting adventure akin to RE4. For those who don't know, Silent Hill Homecoming was not developed by Team Silent, the team responsible for the games up until Silent Hill Origins, but rather developed by a company known as Double Helix Games after Konami decided that Silent Hill would be better left in the hands of a Western company than the people who made Silent Hill what it is.
Genius. You reject the idea of making a good game in favor of outsourcing your IP for cheaper costs of development. Brilliant!
So I'm about to get into some spoiler territory here with the story, and while I'm not going to go through a play-by-play of what happens in the story, I will be spoiling major plot points, as I feel they are necessary to talk about. If you want to play the game to experience the story, I suggest you skip to the next timestamp, okay? Alright, the story. Silent Hill Homecoming does have a story, but it's pretty duty.
The writer's name is literally Patrick Duty. So I'm saying, proof's in the pudding.
The story revolves around Alex Shepard, who's an army man. He's got dog tags because he's an army man. Anyway, that's all you need to know about the main character. He's a Silent Hill protagonist.
The cord's cut.
The game starts off in a hospital where you're being rushed through the halls after sustaining some sort of injury. You are taken through a small cutscene where doctors seem to be harming the patients, which builds up the expectation that this is not a good place to be, and you must get out. As you make your way through this hospital, you meet up with a child named Josh, who turns out to be Alex's brother, of whom he's been searching for because of unknown reasons. The hospital itself sets up the rest of the game's dungeons. And when I say dungeons, I mean areas of interest that you go into, such as the older game's Woodside Apartments or Acamelia Hospital. Except instead of spending time solving puzzles in these places or exploring, Homecoming's level design has nowhere to explore, and it's all extremely linear and limited to where the player can go. It feels more like it's on rails than open like in other Silent Hill games. Sure, you always had to follow a set sequence for most areas in previous Silent Hill games, but you could always leave and come back, or you were rewarded with small items when exploring. They were more like labyrinths with key points that needed to be visited rather than follow this hall, do this, go back, give bunny, follow boy down hall, squish bug. Not to mention, they have maps in this game, but you don't really need them. The game's so linear, I'd use the map for one level, and unfortunately level design is not Double Helix's strong suit, and it really shows in Homecoming. Upon the end of the level, you are stabbed, and you wake up in a truck revealing it was all a dream sequence. And we are headed to Alex's hometown of, you guessed it, Shepherd's Glen. Okay, so honestly, I was a little let down that this game didn't take place in Silent Hill. This isn't surprising since Silent Hill 4 took place in Ashfield and 3 started outside of Silent Hill. Spoiler alert, you do go to Silent Hill, but it feels like it's only a small snippet of the actual town and was only put in because some higher up was like, hey, make sure this game's in Silent Hill. Hell, if the game only took place in Shepherd's Glen, I wouldn't have been that mad provided that the town was fleshed out. But unfortunately, much with the dungeons in this game, both towns are left to a mere street or two, and the player doesn't really have a whole lot to explore. The world just feels empty, but maybe that's the point. Shepherd's Glen is the neighboring town to Silent Hill. It's here that Alex returns to search for his brother. It's also here that you meet the amazing cast of NPCs that Double Helix has to offer, all of which have the weirdest facial animations I have ever seen. Alex's face looks off, but once you meet Margaret, she straight up just looks like a fish person from Call of Cthulhu. Look, she got the eyes. She's just missing the gills. I can fix that for you. I have never seen more stiff and unexpressive character models than I have in Homecoming. Even Rubberneck Harry over here has more expression. You slowly find out that Alex has been away a while, due to him being in the army. And there have been some disappearances in Shepherd's Glen. Well, actually, some is an understatement. It's the whole goddamn town, save for a select few people. Throughout the game, you're treated to flashbacks of Alex's past that shows his disconnect with his father and the fact that it seems his brother Josh was the golden child. Alex makes his way through Shepherd's Glen investigating the disappearances of townfolk who might be connected to the disappearance of his brother, which, to be fair, is a great premise, but the delivery on it falls so short. As stated previously, the whole narrative is extremely linear and lacks originality. God, I sound pretentious saying that, don't I? The last act of the game takes place in Silent Hill, and after an encounter with his father, it's revealed that Alex isn't an army man. He's a crazy person who was sent to the crazy house because, oh no, Alex killed his brother Josh by accidentally knocking him off a boat and forgot because it was traumatic.
Alex killed his brother and then forgot about it. Where have I heard that one before? This game, it feels like the Silent Hill property was given to a bunch of Silent Hill 2 fans and just told to go make a game, because they quite literally stole everything from Silent Hill 2.
Nurses, plot. Oh, you know Pyramid Head, the embodiment of James' psyche? Yeah, he's in this game too, and he serves no purpose other than to cut Alex's father in half.
Hey man, mind if I copy your notes? Yeah, for sure, dude. Just, make sure you change it up and it's not obvious. Yeah. Okay.
And change it up they tried. The delicious fluff story elements they added to make this story its own thing is so half-baked it's not even funny. Not only did they take the Silent Hill 2 story and just replace James and Mary with Alex and Josh, it turns out Shepherd's Glen was founded by a bunch of cult members from Silent Hill who decided, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, and so they left Silent Hill and went across the lake to another town. But Riley, they can't leave Silent Hill. Won't they be punished? Won't the demons chase after them? Well, I'm glad you asked that super specific question. The cult members who left Silent Hill were scared of the other cult members, so they said, hey mates, we'll kill one child from the founding families every 50 years so you guys don't sick the god on our asses and devour Shepherd's Glen.
But why?
Does the cult not like when people leave Silent Hill? It was always to my understanding that the cult never even had direct control over the dark god, and they're not able to weaponize it. I thought the god of Silent Hill was an ambiguous being that influenced its followers, but didn't directly send demon bombs into other towns because other cult members were leaving. It just seems like such poor interpretation of the Silent Hill lore and an overall dumb plot. Anyways, there are 4 founding families, Alex's family being one of them. At the time of the game, 3 out of 4 of the children were killed so far, with Alex up on the chopping block. Everything was going smoothly until Alex accidentally killed Josh, which made his dad upset, and because he was left with only one son, he didn't kill Alex and sent him away to a mental hospital, which messed everything up, and now demons have come. Awesome. It's so stupid. So now it is up to Alex to forgive himself and fight. Holy shit, it's a pregnant spider woman. Yeah, in the end, Alex fights the spider lady who's supposed to represent, Josh, Alex's mom. Hey, what's she supposed to represent? Quick wiki search. Josh's death of drowning and his love of bugs. Joshua's love of photography. God damn it. Okay. When you think of Silent Hill, you think of religion, trauma, burden. The older Silent Hill games did a great job of conveying these ideas in physical forms. You had the burned creatures from Silent Hill 1, which were projections of Alyssa's burnt body. Silent Hill 2, there were James's nurses, which were manifestations of lust. Hell, even Silent Hill 4 had Walter's manifestations instead of Henry's, which made for a cool twist on a classic. Then you have Silent Hill Homecoming, where the final boss is a representation of Alex's brother's love of bugs and taking photos. To be completely fair, Homecoming does have some symbolism in the monsters, but a lot of them are, well, they're from other games. You can tell the game is heavily inspired by Silent Hill 2 and slightly the movie. You got the nurses from Silent Hill 2, you got Pyramid Head, both linked to James, and to add insult to injury, they are both the movie adaptations, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but everything feels like a nod to the previous games and feels more like, hey, you remember this? Rather than a manifestation of Alex himself. And what makes me more mad is if the demons are manifestations of Alex, then why is the cult summoned the demons that are supposed to symbolize Alex and not someone else? And if they're not manifestations of Alex, then they just threw out any continuity from a lore perspective and said the cult can summon demons.
Okay, I've had enough about the story, but now you might be thinking, but Riley, what's the game like? Not good.
Homecoming plays like a Silent Hill game if a Silent Hill game sucked. You have your patented Silent Hill running around, investigating, puzzles, quick time events, dodge mechanics, light and heavy attacks, combos, everything you can want in a modern action horror RPG developed by Capcom, except it's by Konami, and it's bad. Right off the bat, you're introduced to some good old-fashioned QuickTime events, and these literally add nothing to the game. In fact, here at this wall, if you click the button too fast, you die. And I'm not against QuickTime events. I think they work in certain games, but man, I feel like in this game, it's literally just, they're there to be there, because it was hip and cool at the time. They add nothing to the story, other than being usually a save versus death condition. And you know what else this game has? Dialogue options. You know, branching conversations that you can have in RPGs like Fallout or Elder Scrolls. And depending on how you handle it, it usually results in a new narrative. Yeah, there's no point to the dialogue options in this game. There are 3 or 4 times where it will change the ending of the game, but for the most part, it's just small talk that leaves you with less brain cells than you started with.
Hello? Can I ask you something?
I'm busy.
Seriously, this is the most pathetic show of dialogue options I've ever seen in a game, and I've been saying that a lot about this game. For one thing, Silent Hill has always been a series where you're along for the ride with the main character. The series plays out how it was supposed to, and the character is never a self-insert, but in Homecoming, they try to get you to walk the shoes of Alex, and they fail terribly. Like, you can literally exhaust every option, and it will always end up with the same result in the end. The game wants you to pick a specific option to carry out the story, leaving the other options as just narrative fluff. And then there's combat. Oh, my sweet summer child. Remember when Silent Hill games were jank as fudge and it added to the horror experience? You're walking along the streets of Silent Hill and suddenly something pops out at you and freaks you out and you just give it a whack? Well, how about instead of that, we can army dodge. Oh yeah, finishing blows. Stun locking for high octane action. Silent Hill has combat, but it takes the form of an attempt on action horror based combat, which is weird in an atmospheric game, and it just doesn't fit. What seems like an attempt to innovate backfires into a brutal mess of unresponsive and clunky spam fest because the enemies take ages to kill. And then there's the dodge. The idea behind this is that you could roll out of the way or sidestep before an attack hits you, but it doesn't work. I always manage to get hit if I'm trying to dodge away. The enemies will hit me on the last frame of their attack, or the game will just decide that the dodge wasn't a dodge and I'll get hit anyway. It truly feels like the dodge is a gamble where it works sometimes, but it doesn't work most of the time. With your melee weapons, you have a light and a strong attack, but normally you want to go with the light attack because it stuns enemies and you can lock them into a combo, but watch out, the enemies can combo you as well. In fact, I've died many times by being stunned in a corner with no hope of escape because the goddamn dodge doesn't work and blocking only delays the inevitable. Even the gunplay is janky. Alex points and shoots like it's Resident Evil 4, but with terrible gunplay, and the bullets do as much damage as James's pillow, which now that I think about is actually a lot of damage. The AI in this game is so dumb. I'm often like killing one of their friends and they're just standing there watching me. You don't believe me? Check out these two. There is just something about the combat that feels off, and it feels like in situations where it should work, it doesn't, and other times it works great. It's like they had the right idea, but left it unfinished, which makes for some extremely aggravating moments in gameplay. On top of aggravating combat, the UI in this game is a complete mess. I find when I want to pull out a weapon just to pry open a door or chop down some wood, I click on the item and it doesn't change. This sucks, especially when you're fighting a boss and it's required that you use a specific item to finish it off. And the PC port of this game, which is the version that I played, has got to be one of the poorest ports I've ever seen. You have to mod the game to make it so it doesn't crash on you. With modding it, the game still crashes on me at least 1 to 2 times per hour. I can't tell you how many times I get to a specific point and the game would just crash on me, setting me back 30 minutes to an hour just because I didn't go back and save constantly. And what's even worse is the button prompts in the game for when you're doing dialogue or you're doing quick time events, they're just not correct. The game thinks this green circle with the number 4 in it is the same as my Xbox's yellow button with a Y in it. Like, if you want to bring up your menu and use a key item, instead of saying LB, it gives you this symbol. What even is that? Click the cult symbol on your controller? Oh, there it is. But unfortunately, modding the game only fixes so much. Many of the problems that Silent Hill Homecoming has are built into it, like its clunky controls, like Alex going up to a door and slowly turning to open it. Poor story pacing where Double Helix thinks the best way to progress the story is to knock Alex out and have him wake up somewhere else. Not to mention the cutscenes that end abruptly and the brutally slow puzzles. God. But if I were to end off on a positive note, I would say that Homecoming has a great soundtrack. It feels so reminiscent of the older games, and the tone matched the atmosphere so well. I appreciate the work the composer put in. Oh, it's Akira Yamaoka? Oh, that makes sense. He did the other games. That's why it's good. I also really enjoy the monster designs. While I jest about the symbolism with them, I think they're very cool looking and deserve the praise. The crawly guys are spooky, the bosses are well designed, and each new monster kept me wanting more, so hey, good job, Double Helix.
Silent Hill Homecoming was subpar at best and was a huge disappointment to me as a Silent Hill fan. I'm sure that it has its place in people's hearts, but for me it was frustrating with the consistent crashes, the uninspired story, the janky controls, and the just hollow game design. What I thought was going to be a fun ride ended up being a reality check from Double Helix Games, signed by Konami, about the bleak future of the Silent Hill franchise. Now, PT was like the only good modern adaptation, but that got squashed between the lights of a flashing pachinko machine. I came up with that on the fly. It's kind of funny. But if you want to know my opinion on PT, you can take a little gander over to this video, or it's over here, I don't know. And while you're there, why don't you subscribe to the channel? But until then, thanks for watching.